This flesh, this flesh, this flesh. If we're not careful, this flesh can take over. The Bible says a little leaven leaveneth the whole lump. I mean, how true is that? What's up, Kingdom? Grace and greetings to all of you out there in the digital world. We have to be careful in this walk with God, in our Christian life, and here is why. Think about your walk with God, your life in God as a beautiful garden. And this flesh that we're living in right now is like a weed. If we're not paying attention, if we're not being intentional about watching the weeds in our garden, then pretty soon those weeds can take over. If we're not paying attention to the flesh, then this flesh can start to take over and get out of control. And as a believer, our walk with God is predicated on us dying to the flesh, because Jesus said to pick up our cross every day and to deny ourselves. Paul said, I die daily. So we have to live a life of denying the passions or the lusts of the flesh. And if we're not careful, we can open a door in the flesh that will allow the flesh to just run rampant, and it's easy for us to get carnally minded. This flesh has many doors to it. And the more doors you have opened to your flesh, the more carnal you're going to become. For example, in my own personal life, there was a time when I struggled with pornography. There was a time when I struggled with video games. I was always playing video games. Then there was a time when I struggled with TV, movies, Netflix, YouTube. I mean, I would constantly watch. And all of these doors that were open to the flesh allowed my spiritual life to slowly wither away, because this flesh is like a weed. It was growing and taking over my life, taking over my garden, and choking out the spiritual life, choking out the flowers of spirituality. And that can take a toll on you. If you continue in something like that, eventually you are going to fall into sin, if you're not in sin already. So I had to overcome these things. And a couple of months ago, I realized that, you know what? I think that I'm watching too much TV for my level of faith. I'm watching too many movies for my level of faith, and I need to cut it out so that I can take that energy, take that time, and focus it on something that's going to benefit my spiritual life. And so I did that. When we begin to close these doors, then we're putting ourselves in position to keep carnality out of our life. But if you've got 5 doors open that the flesh can work through, and you close 4 of them, but you keep 1 door open, you're going to end up with the same carnal mind. Let me paint a picture. Let's say I'm watching movies all the time. On top of that, I'm playing video games all the time. 2 doors that are open to the flesh. And let's say I realize, like, oh my goodness, I'm becoming carnal, I'm becoming lazy, my spiritual mind is getting dull, my carnal mind is thriving. I am living after the flesh. Let me cut that out. I need to stop. So I close the doors of movies, I close the doors of video games, and now I'm starting to get momentum in my spiritual life back. But all of a sudden, I open another door. Not the same ones, not the movies, not the video games, but I open another door. Now I find myself eating and overeating and overindulging. I find myself giving into honey buns here and there, giving into candy here and there, eating more and more, that is still a door to the flesh. And although I've closed these two areas off, I've opened this door right here, and the flesh is doing the exact same thing. I'm doing the exact same thing. I'm giving in to the flesh. Whether I'm doing it over here or I'm doing it over there, it doesn't matter. If I'm giving in to the flesh, then I am becoming carnally minded. I am sowing to the flesh. And the Bible says that if we sow to the flesh, then we will of the flesh reap corruption. If you're experiencing corruption in your life, maybe it's because you've been sowing to the flesh. We have to check every area. We cannot stop indulging in the flesh through this means right here, and then start indulging in the flesh through that means right there, and think that we're getting ahead of the game. Indulging in the flesh is indulging in the flesh no matter what the source is. Different sources that we use to indulge in the flesh don't matter, because the act of giving in is still the same. Whether I'm giving into a honey bun over here, or I'm giving into a movie over there, or I'm giving in to pornography over here. And that is sin right there, by the way, if you didn't know. Or if I'm giving into Netflix over here, or if I'm giving into ice cream over there, or if I hit the snooze button up here, wherever I'm giving into the flesh, or rather, whenever I'm giving into the flesh, that's just what I'm doing. I'm sowing to the flesh. What we sow doesn't really make a difference. If I'm sowing Netflix to the flesh, I'm gonna reap corruption. If I'm sowing honey buns to the flesh, I'm overeating, I'm gonna reap corruption. If I'm sowing laziness over here, oversleeping over there, I'm going to reap corruption. It doesn't matter what you sow to the flesh, the end result is corruption. If you sow to the flesh, then you will reap corruption. So we have to be careful. We got to pay attention to the spiritual garden of our life, and we cannot allow the flesh to take over. The flesh is like a weed. It'll pop up. It's going to pop up. You don't have to do anything. If you just leave the garden alone, weeds are going to pop up out of nowhere. Why? Because the wind blows, birds fly by, and they drop seeds. The wind carries the seeds. The Bible says that the wind of doctrine blows. Paul warned the Christians not to be carried about with every wind of doctrine. We got to be careful what we hear. We can hear things and it plants something carnal in our mind. We can hear things and it sow a carnal seed that if we allow it to grow, it's going to reap corruption. Birds fly overhead. We can have thoughts that pop into our minds that if they go unchecked, they're going to produce corruption in our lives. So the point that I'm making, brothers and sisters, is that we need to walk circumspectly. We have to watch and we have to pray. You've got to keep an eye out on your flesh. Don't allow your flesh to run rampant. Some of you might live in an apartment building and you can go out of your way to deny the flesh. Instead of taking the elevator, take the stairs. I've made mention of that before. This is something that I practice a lot. Matter of fact, most of the time, to be deliberate in denying pleasure to the flesh, I'll take the stairs. And it's good to do little exercises like that. For example, if you're going to the store, you're going to Walmart, park in the back of the store. Don't park up close to the front. Make your flesh walk to the store. Unless it's thunderstorming, then obviously, you maybe don't want to do that. But look for little things, look for little areas in your life where you can go out of your way to deny the flesh, to keep the flesh in check. That's exactly what we want to do. We got to keep the weeds of our flesh in check. I hope that this has been a blessing to you. I pray that the grace of God continues to be with you. May you be victorious in your walk with God. Like this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and drop a comment. Let me know what you think. God bless you.